That's what I wanted.
Hello. Hello. Let's see. We don't have anybody yet. But that gives me a good chance to toss this puppy up on Facebook. GBU Facebook page does not get enough love. Anybody who listens to this, please check out the GBU Facebook page, The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, and give me a reason to start posting there. I just kind of throw up the episodes as we're recording them and all, but definitely could be much more of a place to congregate than it certainly is right now. So check out the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly Facebook page. Give me a reason to put a little bit of work into it, and I will.
I'll hype 2 games.
We got 3 viewers. Hello, Mer. Yeah, no kidding, right? I just pressed start recording. Good to hear from you, dude. So, yeah, we're about to start. We're about to start recording from relatively close to on time, close to what we were saying we were going to broadcast. So TC is not going to be joining us tonight. So maybe there's a correlation. Maybe not. But he's going to be sorely missed. I know. I was looking forward to his input on this because figuring that TC comes from an entirely different game group out, totally different time zone and all, that maybe, it would just getting different commentary about our topic would be really helpful. And I think so. You guys there in the chat, that'll help us out instead. So we'll be listening to you guys and talking about that when we discuss how we decide what we're going to play next. Which, we could always do the Good, Bored, Ugly, which, by the way, Andy, you're wearing a beautiful shirt there.
I know.
Yeah. We're matching.
I like these shirts so much. I use them for night clothes.
I feel like I wear mine a lot.
No,
I wear it to school.
Wear it to school. Nice.
I do, yeah. I wear it to school on Fridays. Like, yeah, I'm actually pretty proud of it. And I am, run the game group. I'm just trying to make it less of a stigmatized thing. I definitely want to get more girls in game group, though. I definitely want to get it so that there are, at least some girls that are able to express that as an outlet. I know there's a lot more girls that do play games than come to the game group, anyway, I'm trying to work on that. But that's one of the reasons that I wear my shirt to school, is just to try to make it, I don't know, seem less different, less weird.
Yeah, so we got told by our principal to you must wear only school clothing or whatever on casual Fridays.
On Fridays? Oh, come on.
It has to be school. The one thing I did talk him into because of class culture and the fact that my students love it is I still get to wear my dorky science teacher shirts because they just come to expect it now.
I guess, dude, I need to be a lot more thankful because I've never had to deal with really at Boone. It just feels kind of like that, they're busy enough with their stuff that they're not going to bug me, at least on those types of things that, like the micromanaging sort of things. That's really micromanaging. It feels like, that.
Yeah.
My first school, the teachers would wear jeans all the time. And so they started making it be you could wear jeans during the week on special fundraiser days, but you had to pay $5.
Yeah, no, we do that too. That's how we increase the social fund for people who have a loss in the family and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that money goes up real fast whenever they do something like that to earn money.
Mm-hmm. I had to tell me, man, that they're going to do it for sweatpants.
Yeah, so that's what we've done too. See, my argument is why can PE teachers dress the way they do? I don't ever actually see them working out with the kids.
No kidding. Yeah, and if I have at our school, they make us sub. They can just tell us hey, you're going to sub during your planning period.
Yeah, they do that to us too.
that can be kind of devastating. But I've had to sub so many times for PE, and like I'm one of those who, if I'm playing, if I'm watching kids play something, unless it's a game I loathe, or a game that I'm just, not a big fan of, and there's nothing wrong with volleyball, I just suck at it. I can't figure out how to hit the darn thing, and so I wouldn't play that. But anything else, like I actually want to participate, but there I am in like my nice clothes, subbing for PE. It's like if I'm going to be subbing for PE, why can't I just wear sweatpants all the time? As a matter of fact, why can't people just wear sweatpants?
I don't know.
I want that. Like, if there's ever an event just for me, I think I've been saying, my funeral, I want the dress code to be sweatpants. You show up wearing sweatpants. You know what? I even want to start like a review channel where all I do is just review different brands of sweatpants.
Yeah. When we got, my wife and I got married, it was at the zoo. We told everyone to dress for the zoo. Because you could actually go, you could go out to the zoo during the reception, like with that, 1 to 2 hour god awful time where you're waiting for like the fun bridal group to come back. Like you could actually go around the zoo, and it was funny because
that's awesome.
Only like one segment of my family actually like listened to us. So everybody was coming in suits to the zoo, and then like this one group of my family's like, I thought you said to wear shorts and stuff. We're like, we did. You're the only people that listened. All these people that wore suits are actually being offensive to us because we told them not to.
Dude, if you'd asked me to wear something like dressed down, that would have been just beautiful. I would have loved it.
It was a fun time, and most of my family considered me marrying at a zoo to be very, very appropriate. I like even got a picture of me in like my tux next to the penguins.
That is legit. Was that at the Blank Park Zoo in Des Moines?
Yeah, our photographer was like literally afraid that the emu was going to attack him.
Probably going to spit at him or something, right? Or is that just llamas?
That's llamas. No, he was.
I'm thinking emus are the birds, aren't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's fun because we were doing like pictures with all of us walking around the zoo, and since it was like 6 p.m., the animals all thought it was feeding time, so they kept coming up to us and the photographer like, "Hey, dude, where's the food?"
That's awesome. So they were like actually like interacting or trying to interact with you guys.
Yeah, no, it's totally cool, and like it's just for like your wedding group. Like none of the public is there, and it was because we wanted an outdoor area, and it was like cheaper than any other outdoor area anywhere in Central Iowa.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
That sounds like legit.
Some of my old students in my old school were like, "We're gonna crash your wedding." I'm like, "Great, it's feeding time for the tigers. It'll be a wedding and show."
Yeah. The hyenas are like loudly laughing, crashing your wedding party.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, Andy, about time, sir. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Welcome everybody in the chat. Totally here from Ruhr here, who was just blown away that we started on time for once, but here we are now, I guess 10 minutes late and not really actually starting the episode, but who knows, maybe Josh will take this out, maybe not. By the way, thanks Josh for doing editing for The Good, the Word, and the Ugly. He does an awesome job. I have never met a more punctual and just he gets his job done, does a great job, does it really quickly. I can always count on him, extremely dependable, and I've grown to love him. So thank you so much, Josh. Hey, there's Norm. Norm is in the chat. What we want to
say is Josh is more dependable than any of the other members of the podcast.
I guess that's a good time to be saying it. Wow. Jeez. Up until tonight, TC was too. Everybody's had their moments, right? I've had it before. The difference is, though, if I say, like, hey, guys, I don't think I can make it, everybody's like, all right, we're not recording?
Yeah. Next time you can't make it, I'm just going to get on and, like, yodel for an hour and a half.
Actually, I think that our listeners might enjoy that. I think they would.
We would be down to 0.
I'm convinced that that's what you do when giving a review anyway, Andy.
Yeah. I only sing to my children as a form of punishment.
So you should really do for your kids during detention.
No, it's genetic. My mom did the same thing. She'd be like, "Do you want a lullaby?" And we're like, "What did we do?"
Norm, I'm kind of curious. Did you guys figure out Hamster Roll? I saw that one played, but I'd never actually played it. I know that you were loving tumbling dice, and anyhow, I was just curious. So drop that in the chat if you get a chance. Andy, I'm going to start the countdown here for our official start, regardless of whether or not this is actually going to get broadcast. This part, I mean, not this actual episode. I hope it goes on.
Yeah, we're just going to record it, not do anything with it.
3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm your host, Joe Sallin, and tonight it's just me and Andy. Andrew Dennison getting to join us again after his hiatus there for a little while. At least it was kind of an intermittent availability. But anyway, I'm so glad to have you back on here, Andy. You're looking beautiful tonight in your matching shirt to me as we broadcast live on YouTube. How are you doing tonight?
Not too bad, not too bad. School, getting close to Thanksgiving break. Everyone's getting a little squirrely, so...
Yeah, it's getting there, you know, like I've heard tell of some stories going around the lunchroom of teachers being like, you know, kids asking something like, why are we watching an episode of Roseanne? And the teacher's like, it's close to Thanksgiving. So anyway.
I'm giving my kid a test on Monday because I'm a dick.
Yes, that's the way to keep motivated. I'm going to wait all the way until the Tuesday, the last day that we are in school. So yeah, it's definitely keeping them focused till the very end. And that's the way that I keep motivated on that last day is it's just like they walk in and I'm like, hey guys, here it is. And I try to be as sweet and gentle as possible. But yeah, that's about the only way you can get kids to care that Tuesday before they take off. So anyhow, this is about board games. And we both happen to be teachers, me and Andy. So we could probably talk about classroom management strategies, only I feel like maybe that would end up with one of the two of us losing our job. I think it would be you, Andy, honestly, more so than...
Just because I wanted to try clicker training with teenagers this year.
I figure you would have something like that.
No, we're doing like PBIS, which is basically the same. No, I want to actually... The positive behavior supports, if you've heard of that, it's like, you know, you get...
Yes, I had to do that at my first school, yeah.
Yeah, I actually like want to try clicker training with it, like go scan a card and not tell them what I'm actually scanning them for and just see if I can get them to guess and repeat behaviors that I want.
You should do it with Altoids, you know, the old Office, the Jim and Dwight thing. the phone rings. I really want a mint right now.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we were
around children.
We've got teachers in our chat here too. Like I said, we're recording live on YouTube. We have a live chat that we're hearing from Ruhr in the chilly northeastern Florida region. Chilly meaning in the upper 50s. Yeah, Ruhr, if that was the weather here, I would be outside in shorts, not wearing sweatpants, as we were previously talking about. And we've also got, what I was saying though, we've got teachers in the chat, which would be Norm, who hopefully is settling back into Saskatoon. And hopefully son Daniel's doing well, and it sounds like he's having a really great time with tumbling dice though, and I'm really happy to hear that you guys are back home. So everybody else who's listening right now, I see there are a few more viewers there than we're hearing from. I hope that you all are doing well and everything is going your way in terms of what games you're getting to play, as well as things with your family. So hopefully over Thanksgiving break we'll get some gaming in for some of you. I think that with my in-laws, I'm going to be showing them this escape room in a box, which I've done it, and then I put it all together again, which of course, because I'm not a very I'm not an interesting person, we all know that, but I'm not a very organized, and I'm not very good at fitting things back in. When I opened the box, it was easy, and now it doesn't close because I didn't fit everything right. But anyway, that'll be interesting to see. That was quite a cool experience. It did require what felt like preparing an entire lesson to get it all back. Like, it was a lot of printing and learning how to use a double-sided color printer to refill it. So yeah, these
are the skills I have.
Oh, I know how to use the printer, but I don't know, Andy, we might be of a little bit different. You know, you're a science teacher, so you probably have to do a lot more that way than I do. But like for me, almost everything is online. So yeah, it was actually kind of new to me. I wasn't even hooked up on the color printer at the school. It's like they had to like actually come and get me hooked up. Nice. So we are going to be talking about board games here. We're going to review some games. We're going to talk about a topic in the hobby, and we're going to do hype games on our way out. The topic in the hobby tonight is how you decide what game you shall play. And we got some really great comments in the Good Board Ugly Board Game Geek Guild. If you haven't joined that, please join it. It's boardgamegeek/guild/2173, and we've up to over 100 members, like 120 members now, and really enjoy hearing from you guys. And also, that's a good way to figure out when we are doing contests and giveaways if you don't catch the exact episode that we started. So that's kind of the best way to figure out when we're doing game giveaways from our great sponsor, gamesurplus.com. Check them out, gamesurplus.com, or email Carmen, games@gamesurplus.com. If you were listening to our last episode, which was chronologically numbered episode 140, you actually got to hear Carmen's broadcasting debut. So an awesome episode about Essen Game Fair with Carmen and Jeff Gamble of previously the Longview, who is now, getting to just enjoy his guest hosting lax lifestyle. And it was a pretty wild episode that I think was enjoyed by all involved, had a very good time. So you should check that out. But anyway, Carmen on that episode is in no way Carmen, the Game Surplus head. He is Carmen, a guy who loves games, who went over to Essen Spiel Fair and had some really great things to say about the community that he experienced there, as well as the structure of the fair and just what it's like to go over to Essen. So I really highly recommend that you guys go and check that out. Well, Andy, I think that's business for the day, right? That's what all is going on. So
yeah, pretty much. I actually just sent Carmen an email a minute ago. So
oh, cool.
I wonder. It was because Trent was talking about
Noria,
and
did he sell you on that the word economic, and Andy goes ding ding ding.
No, not just economic, cutthroat economic.
Yeah, well, I keep trying to get Carmen. I keep saying this publicly, and I said this to him straight up. Iberian Rails, man. I got to play it again here last night, and I cannot get enough of that game. It's my new love affair. I'm trying to get Carmen to carry copies of it, Game Surplus. So anyway,
that's a Kickstarter, though. That's probably a little tricky.
It was, but I think they're looking at finding a distributor. So that was the impression I got from some of the communication. So I really think that game needs to get out more. It is definitely, to me, much more. It could have a huge audience. I think that it could take Winsome Games, the sort of cube rail games that people also know as Winsome Games because of the company that's kind of popularized those and is known for them. But anyway, it takes that sort of system and it adds mix it with Imperial, and then has a dose of role selection like Carson City, and the result is just amazing. Andy, we played a game with mergers, and it just blew my mind. I felt like you needed to be there. I felt like I was almost betraying you, cheating on you, behind your back, to play a game that had economic takeovers and hostile takeovers. You had no choice, but it was just like the Mafioso. You had to kind of predict when people are going to do that stuff to you. So, but you got to play, Andy, here before we start talking, actually reviewing games. You got to play some games there at the 24-hour game night, and why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I got to play The Great Zimbabwe. Good with that. I've reviewed that before, played it lots of times, so nothing new there. I did get to play Modern Art. This was the second time I played it. I really like that game. It's an auction game, and that's growing to become probably my favorite mechanism anymore. Auctions, the auction game. It's silent auctions, freeform auctions, once around the table auctions, hidden auctions, and it's all about just collecting things and whatnot. And I kind of noticed myself, without Trent at the table trying to turn it into diplomacy, I found myself starting to do it. You're like, oh, you can't let him win that. Come on, go higher. This is ridiculous. Things like that. But it's a lot of fun. It doesn't take very long. It's one of those nice earlier Knizia auction games that work really well.
Crazy how old it is. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it still works really good. And the new one was wasn't it reprinted by Simon, Cool Mini or Not? Right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And they did a really good job on the artwork on it. That's a beautiful game to play. So anyway, yeah, Modern Art, that was a lot of fun.
Cool,
The other one I had a chance to play, which is Going to be semi-review. I only had one play, but it was really interesting. Was an older Martin Wallace game called Byzantium.
Mm-hmm.
So this was kind of like a Euro war game, light war game. So you had to like take over areas. You had some cubes that represented not only your troops, but your ability to maneuver those troops. The kind of really cool thing about it was it also had 2 scoring tracks, one for the Arabians and one for the Byzantines. And the way that worked is you couldn't let your tracks get too far off from each other. Basically, at the end of the game, on a normal ending, you would add up both score tracks. You would add up your Byzantine and your Arabian points together. However, if it was something like more than half off, so let's say your Arabian score was 18 and your Byzantine score was 6, you would lose that whole area of points, so you wouldn't get a score at all. So you had to try to kind of keep them in league with each other. Or if you could get your Arabian armies, which starts out a lot smaller than the Byzantine area, up there and capture Constantinople, which is not a terribly easy task. But if you can do that, then only the Arabian points count. Mm-hmm. So potentially you could have, 2 or 3 players really going in on Byzantine points. And if you could somehow sneak through the back door and take out Constantinople and you had more Arabian points than the other ones, you would win the game. So it was kind of this Hail Mary pass looking thing that was kind of cool. There was dice combat in it, but I didn't feel like, well, let's put it this way. It wasn't determining the game that much because I was rolling crazy good at the beginning of the game. Like, after a point, one of the players is like, I think we should not attack him anymore because he keeps rolling like nothing but hits. So I was just like devastating the crap out of armies. But I didn't win the game. So, it obviously just rolling good wasn't going to help you there at all.
Yeah.
But it was quite an interesting game. I didn't feel like I said it was too luck-based. It did feel like because of the way you can structure your armies, you can go in with the probabilities of knowing what you can and cannot do. So you could set it up to where you had overwhelming force, and there's no way you were going to lose that fight. It's probably not the best winning strategy because you're going to have to take some risks to really pull off some bigger point gains. But you have a good idea of how to manage that. Like you can go, okay, if I go in, as long as he doesn't roll all hits, this battle's mine, which a couple people did to me, and then I rolled all hits, so that didn't work out well for me. But anyway, like I said, didn't win me the game though. So, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. David in our local game group taught it to me. It took me maybe about 20 minutes into the game to really kind of figure out what's going on with it. So it's not too difficult. It's got some nice little older Euro mechanisms of the way the tracks work and points and all that. I actually looked it up earlier. It is on secondary marketplaces like BGG and stuff for like $30-$35. I don't know. Is it a game I would want to play all the time? No, but was it a good game and I enjoyed it? Yeah, I did. It was kind of neat. So anyway, that's kind of my reviews of Modern Art and Byzantium.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed those games, Andy. I think that Modern Art is just an absolute classic for the ages. I would just, not wanting to take up any more time than people have, refer people onto my silent coefficient of Modern Art. Spoiler alert, it's amazing.
I can't decide whether I like it better or Raw better. I think I lean more towards Raw, but it's a very close second out of the Knizia early games.
I would go definitely with I'd have to go with Modern Art for that one. I don't know what it is, but like Raw is so much Raw is really more push your luck. I don't think Modern Art is push your luck. Modern Art is more other players, will very much determine the market for the the paintings that are being sold, and you do the same thing, and it's just, to me, it's a nice little push and pull. You kind of make money just for doing things. Sometimes, as long as you're not paying too much, which can be ridiculously dumb, but if you're the one buying paintings, you're taking away the ability of other players to make any money. So I really, really like the game. And yeah, the other one though, Byzantium, is just, it's a real interesting system. I mean, there's just nothing out there like it, where, you
Yeah,
know,
it's unique as all get out.
you play both sides of a fight, and depending on how things work out, like the amount that you contribute to each cause is going to like determine your victory points. But you know, the outcome of the war, which does, you know, the actions that you're taking to better one side or better the other, are going to have an overall income on the outcome, effect on the outcome of the war, which will then determine what, you know, you actually score for victory points. I've heard one criticism levied against the game is that it's a little bit easier for Constantinople to fall than you would like, especially with, you know, there kind of almost needs to be a certain move happen for players to just prevent Constantinople from just being like a, you know, like a domino, like just setting over a domino trail to get there, because it can be pretty easy.
But that's partially player controlled, because in my game I actually considered going for that at one point. But I played my hand too openly. So once I started building up a lot of Arabian armies, you know, David was like, yeah, I'm not going to let this happen. So he immediately like claimed the areas around Constantinople and just bought a crap ton of levies to protect it.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, you can go for it if you can get through my shield. So, I mean, I think maybe it is, but it's also this game. In this game, you do need to read the opponents. So I think if Constantinople's super easy to topple, there were things that could have been done to make that harder.
Mm-hmm. One thing I would say, and so Andy, that wasn't necessarily like, I don't have enough experience to be able to give any criticism to the game. I can't throw anything at it. I've just heard that before, and especially David, who taught you, has mentioned that. So I do think though, Martin Wallace is looking at war games from just wholly different angles than any other designer at such a early time period. You know, I look, and all of his different explorations of conflict are just absolutely blowing my mind, and I'm always interested to try one. I'm interested to read the rule book and figure out, you know, these different angles you can take at it. However, Martin Wallace rule books do tend to be very difficult, very dense, but almost seemingly not. I don't know. It's the rules.
Yeah, the rules
like
were not that complex in the game, although it took a little bit to explain them.
Mm-hmm.
It did look like there were some really useful like player aids and stuff on BGG you can print out.
Yeah.
Though.
The systems in his games come across as being evocative of the theme in a way that most other games are able to add embellishments that bring up the theme to mind, you know, like extra cards that depict things. But he cooks it into the system, and the system itself just absolutely exudes its theme in a way that I'm really not used to seeing. So I think it's very cool system. And, you know,
the only thing it was missing was your typical Martin Wallace loans.
Of course, Andy's favorite part. Andy's
yeah, it'd be great. Thing. Like go into debt trying to fund your army. That would have been sweet.
Yeah, definitely, to be able to go into debt. It uses dice, but it uses dice in a very interesting way, I would say. You know, it uses those dice in a really cool and unexpected way. And
yeah, they do hits. Well, that's the thing, is that it'll take off cubes, but there's a maximum amount of dice you can roll. So you can look at what you're going for and what you've got, and you can adjust those odds to where the dice can either mean a lot to the fight or a little to the fight, based on what you can just play with the probabilities, because you can look at it and go, okay, he's going to roll 3 dice. That's 3 hits. I'm going to need this many surviving cubes to take the city. And so you can tweak those odds how you want. Like you can wait to move in until it's an absolute sure thing that you're not going to lose. Like I said, not taking any risks like that, I think, is not going to be a winning strategy, but you have a pretty good say on what your risk is going to be.
Yes, absolutely. What I'm really looking for now to play for Martin Wallace is Struggle of Empires. The kind of his take on Civ with, you know, dudes on a map also involved. I've just heard some really cool, you know, the systems there make it a Civ game like no other. So, you know, I'm looking forward to that one quite a bit. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for discussing Byzantium. It really is a game that kind of fell to the wayside, and I like to hear it getting more in the spotlight. David's done a really great job of bringing that game, which I would have otherwise probably not even known existed, into the forefront, and I've enjoyed my plays of it. It's very, very interesting. So it's my turn. I'm going to review games. And the game that I'm going to review for you tonight is a game that I received a review copy of. So thank you so much to Clay at Capstone Games for providing a review copy of the Ruhr, which is it is a game that originated in Germany, and it was originally a Spielworks title. Wasn't it? Yeah, this one was a Spielworks title.
Yeah.
Colon Colony and this one were both Spielworks titles. And then it was called, over in Germany, it was called Ruhrschifffahrt, which is river
fart. There's like 3 F's.
Three F's in a row. That's right. Yeah. It's German consonants, though. They definitely can slam those consonants all in there together. And that means river ship canal, I think, or river ship trade, something like that. It's what it basically is the government-funded trade of coal down the Ruhr, and the way that it developed from its beginnings in the late 1700s, I believe it was, up until its end in its beginnings were in the 1700s and its ends were in like the 1800s, I believe, because every year is like a decade. Every turn is a decade, and you play through 12 turns, and the game ends, I think, in like 1890. So at that point, the rail system in Germany was so well developed that the river trade, which suffered from seasonal availability, first of all, and then also could be impacted by high water, low water, was just more susceptible to difficulties and logistics. Anyway, the game itself of the Ruhr is designed by Thomas Spitzer, and it is a game for 2 to 4 players, plays in 2 hours according to the box, though I do find it goes longer than that when you're teaching players. I've played with 3 and I've played with 4. I've not yet tried it with 2. I've played several games with 4 and 1 game with 3, and they didn't really feel that much different. I do think that the balancing aspects in the game do work, and it feels like quite a much the same game when going with 3 as it does with 4. And I imagine it would be the same with 2, because it just kind of it makes the game, no matter what in this game, you're always going to be competing. And I would almost say that a 2-player game becomes more cutthroat than a 4-player game. So if you're looking for cutthroat, Andy, which obviously we know that now, I would recommend that you try out the 2-player game, because everything that you get, every tile has only 1 copy of it that's available to you, except for some base tiles that everybody has like a set of. For you to get these upgrade tiles, you'll be need to be the first one that goes for it. And it reminds me in a large way like milestones from Food Chain Magnet, where once this nobody else can get it. But the nature of these ones are that there's the amount of players -1, so there'll always be one person who gets skunked and doesn't get one of these upgrade tiles. The actual gameplay itself involves shipping coal down the river. At the start of the game, there are going to be a lot of dams in the river, and every time there's a dam, the coal's quality gets reduced because it actually is thematically leaving the ship and then having to be transferred onto a different ship. And they say that sometimes by the time it finally reached the export port of Port Ruhrort, that it was just coal dust. So you're going to be shipping these dice that are black dice and white dice, depending on what region the coal comes from. You only have access to the black dice at the start of the game. And if it says 4 on the die, like it has a 4 counter, then that means that die is quality 4. If you ship it, you'll have to reduce its quality by 1 if you're shipping it across these locks, which means that you're trying to avoid shipping across locks if possible, that there's no way to avoid it at the beginning of the game. Because once you start this game and you get everything going, you're going to be making deliveries, and each delivery is going to be upgrading you and giving you a cube on this little development board. And this development board is like one of the most interesting takes on tech trees I've ever seen. And that seems to be what Thomas Spitzer's MO is with Haspel Connect and with Ruhrschifffahrt, or known as the Ruhr, which I do like that name change. The Ruhr, a story of coal trade by Clay from Capstone Games. You are looking at a just very interesting take on a tech tree, because every time that you make a decision, or every time you make a delivery, you're going to be putting a development cube in a slot for either cities, industries, or if you can make it all the way to Port Ruhr for that. And if you can get a specific combination of deliveries of all three of those things, then you'll be able to then claim an upgrade tile, some of which are limited. It is a really interesting system. You're always not just looking at what dice you have available and how much money you're going to get, because the higher quality dice give you more money, but you're also thinking about, like, what dice do I want to develop? You know, what do I want to get here on my tech tree? It's a really interesting little system. And what you're eventually doing is making money and acquiring these tiles, these once per round use tiles that let you start building warehouses. And the warehouses are a secondary source of income, but really a big source of points. I would say the main points in the game are going to come from warehouses. There's some other points here and there that you can get throughout playing the game. The game's going to take a course of 12 rounds. You've got exporting coal, which has its own little kind of way that the point score on your exporting coal and how you can build for that. You're going to then, at certain points in the game, need to certain actions are going to become more difficult. And every time that you choose a coal that you're going to draft, you also choose a special action, and these special actions can cost you money, and money is very tight in the game. So be careful with that. It is an interesting decision, and let's put it like this. All of that I've told you so far is a cool and interesting system, albeit, you know, nothing that's really blowing my mind outside of that tech tree. But my kind of tagline for the Ruhr is player order track the Euro game. Everything you're doing here, every time you choose a die, you are determining turn order. And whenever you choose a die, you have options to go anywhere downriver, but to go upriver, you have to take the action that costs $1 to haul your ship backwards. So, like I said, money's tight. That's tough to do. However, if you're further down the river, you're going to go last in turn order, and you're going to have access to crappier coal. And people that are first in turn order can, like, do things like remove, because you can lock build in this game as well. You're also developing. You can remove a lock and then guarantee that you're going to have access to deliver a coal die that goes through that lock. There's a lot of really interesting pieces here. And the main thing that I have to say is it's a super interesting system that I'm always very excited to try. I love the way that its player board works. The only gripe that I have with it, and this comes from me having played the game 4 or 5 times, teaching it every time, it goes slow. And it's a game that has a lot of thematic bases and thematic reasoning, so thematic mechanics, but it's definitely a Euro game, and it works as a Euro game. There's like very little random in this game. But it does go long. And just understand that, you know, this game is going to take you 2 to 3 hours, maybe even longer if you're playing with slow players, your first game. And does the game justify a 3-hour playtime? I would say yes, but barely. And I know that I've played it with individuals that have felt that it's a good game, but not worth the amount of time that it takes. And this is kind of like me telling you a light Salin coefficient, though the actual Salin coefficient video is forthcoming once I get the game played more and played with the opposite side of the board, which adds an entire new game called the Ohio, which just blows my mind how Clay was able to make that happen, to get that designer to design an actual reimagining of this entire system called the Ohio. And I've read the rules on it a couple of times and still haven't played it. So anyway, my review so far is just of the Ruhr. I do really enjoy the game. It just goes a little bit too long, but I'm still willing to play it, which, if people know me, I'm an extremely picky and impatient player. So the fact that it makes me impatient, if you're a heavy gamer, you should not in any way be worried about that. When I play this game, I feel like this is a Euro, but I think it'll be up Andy's alley. I know, Andy, that Haspel Connect was just a bit too light for you, but no, I think actually,
I like Haspel Connect. I wouldn't label as being a bad game at all. Like, I actually enjoyed playing it, but it's just in that weight class where it's not something I'm gonna push to play. But if somebody's playing it and asks me to play, like, yeah, hands down, I play it. I found it to be an interesting game. I would have wished for some more interaction on it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I've got you. Wait, did you play this game then?
Richard?
Yeah.
No, I have not done that yet.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
played Cola
you were talking about
Colony
Past
was the
Connect,
other
dude. I
one I
just
played.
my brain teleported to the upside down. I've been watching too much Stranger Things. So I really think, though, that player interaction is at the heart of the Ruhr. And I honestly think that you'll see that most of the two-player game. I almost want to just drive over there, Andy, and show you the two-player game, because I really think that you're going to like the way that you look around. Like I said, think of milestones and food chain magnet, but then the entire game is like this giant turn order track. It is a really cool system, super tight economy, cutthroat. I don't know. I just said that. I don't really think it's that cutthroat. It's very Euro-y. But
does it have a paper map? That's another selling point.
I knew it. I knew it. You know what, Andy? I can print off a printer paper map that's not even fastened together. Literally just 4 sheets of printer paper and put them in order. Because this is a weird board. The board is like a four-piece board where it's got 4 folding parts, but it's all like an accordion. It just straight up.
Yeah, that is a little funky.
It doesn't quite
encountered another game that did that. Yeah, I encountered another game that did that, and the biggest problem was that dang board was nigh impossible to get to lay flat.
Yeah, it is, and it's just because of that fourfold. You know, the way when it sits in the box, it's those bends and folds are just kind of getting. There's nothing to hold them down that much. So, but I am super pumped to get the Ohio played, and I just think it's so cool. It definitely would feel like one of those Euro games that I play, between 5 and 15 times, and then we'd probably see most of what the game has to offer, right? Especially since there is no like change in availability of any of the upgrade tiles. They're just also integral to the game that you don't want that. It'd be like, imagine if in Food Chain Magnet you had certain milestones that you didn't play with, right?
Yeah.
I personally think that would work because I look at something like Great Zimbabwe, which I know you also got to play at game night, and that works even though they only play with 2/3 of the available gods that come in the game. But in this game, it's one that's good for those people who want the game to be kind of more of an exercise of beating the other players and less about beating the game system, if that makes sense. The game system is not going to just kick you in the nads or anything that bad. So that's my take on the Ruhr. And I'm going to give a little first impression here because I don't have nearly enough experience to call anything set in stone here. But I'm going to be talking about the new hot Keyper, which I was in the Kickstarter and got that character version that has like all the actual meeple source meeples. And if anybody's been following me on Twitter, which if you don't, you totally should, at GoodBoardUgly, I actually have very few followers, so you should follow me, if only for pity. But I've been talking, about follow me for pity. That's the good, the word, and the ugly.
Please, sir,
do it for pity.
Just follow me, please.
So what I do on what I've been doing every time I open the box for Keyper is just go, because it smells beautiful. It absolutely smells beautiful. I don't know if they're using like aromatic paints or whatnot at Meeple Source, but this game, and it's not just the pieces, the painted pieces, it's the actual punch boards themselves. I swear they have perfumed them, man. It is absolutely one of the most, it's a sweet smell, but it's not really cloying. It's not like in your face. So I'm just like, constantly just smelling things, smelling the box. It's yeah, so this one gets a 10 out of 10 for the smell category. There are definitely games that could learn from this, right, Andy?
Should have been more historical. It should smell like coal. No, this is Keyper, isn't it?
This is Keyper, yeah, man.
No,
you know what? You know what I should do? I should give you a one of these games in the Coal trilogy, like Coal and Colony for Christmas, and be like, "You've been a bad boy."
Yeah.
There's an Andy joke.
Yep, it would be.
It's the best jokes are thoroughly explained. It's because Andy's been bad and he's getting coal for Christmas, a lump of coal. So I'm sure that joke's already been made by Thomas Spitzer to everybody he's ever given the game at Christmas. But anyway, it's a funny joke and it deserves to be repeated and thoroughly explained. Keyper, though, let's talk about Keyper, right? Keyper uses a special trademarked logo loop board to be like a worker placement spot. that the reason this trademark board is an important part of the game is that you can actually fold the board in half, and it kind of has like a Jacob's ladder effect where you can keep on folding the board, and it eventually gets to the point where you've got like a 4x4 board, but you can fold it in half and then fold it again in half from there, fold it again in half, fold it again in half, and then fold it again in half, and now you're back to where you started. It's really interesting. Like I think it works just as a fidget spinner toy. Like I'll just sit there sort of folding it when I'm sitting there at the game table. But the reason that you're doing this is because you start the game on the spring side of these boards. Anybody who's familiar with any games in the Key series, like the very popular Keyflower, know that the game goes through it is similar to that in that it goes through 4 phases, which line up to the months or to the seasons of the year, spring through winter, winter being mainly about scoring. And in this game, you start with a certain bunch of available things on your board because you have to use the spring side of the board. And that will give you a 15 total spots that you can either place your single keeper, which is that good old waving meeple that we love from Keyflower, the good old purple waving start player. This time everybody gets one of those. Or you can place one of your keeples, your little meeples, and those will go on spots on the board to do things like get you resources or get you upgrades. It's all a very simple worker placement system. However, whenever you place a meeple, you then have to give the next person in turn order the ability to place one as well. And if they choose to place one, they will get to go on a spot there with you, and you each get to take that action twice now. And if you actually play a meeple that matches the color of that spot, you'll get to go 3 times. Oh, and the person following has to play the same color of meeple as you. There's a wild meeple that they can play as well. So what you're doing is you're playing this and you're like, okay, I'm going to get a pig. Wait, does anybody, like, do you want to follow? Do you want to follow? And you're kind of hoping somebody follows you because then you'll get 3 pigs instead of 2. So very cool system that way. However, when you get these things, like, what's the point? Let's talk about the point. And the point is to get points. How do you get points? Well, that's kind of all up in the air. You have a certain amount of personal tiles that you have access to. You have like 12 of them that you can build that are mainly focused on scoring. And they're all going to let you hold animals and score points for animals, build things that give you points for resources. Some of them actually are places that you can actually place a meeple on your own personal player board to take an action. Think like that you can in Keyflower. And then the main thing, though, that you're really getting tiles in this game is a drafting line of 8 tiles drawn out of a bag. And as soon as anybody takes a tile, you replace it. And then at the end of the round, all of those wipe and totally go away, and then you draw 8 new ones out of the bag. So I don't know if you can hear this, but that's kind of my biggest gripe at the game is that, first of all, the game feels fairly like aimless and loose to start with. Everybody starts with like an equal amount of keeples, and you can just, I feel like there's just enough space for everybody. And there's just pretty much all the same stuff on all the boards. And then you end up with these tiles, and it's just kind of like, well, I chose whatever tile was best out there. And there is definitely combos that form, but you just kind of have to be able to get the combo when it's there. And there's not really much of a limit in terms of how many tiles you can have in your possession to later on build. But so you can just kind of take tiles whenever you want to, get a whole bunch of tiles, form your combo, and then just sit there, cracking it out and getting things to go. The one thing that is really interesting about this game is the placement of your Keeper is the waving meeple, and that's because all 4 of these places that you're actually placing your meeples on, they're like functioning as the boats from Keyflower, where when you place your Keeper on that tile, you're claiming that tile, and now at the end of the round, you're going to get access to all of those keeples, and so that's how you determine how many you have going to the next round. I found that system to be pretty cool, but it just made it so that as soon as somebody played their Keeper on a tile, it was just like, I don't really want to go there anymore. And so it became really cagey. But it was an interesting system, and I quite enjoyed that. The rest of it, though, was all fairly run-of-the-mill. There is a bunch of animeeples here. We're talking 8 different animeeples, and they are pretty much just cosmetic. I'm not that big of a fan when you've just got all these different types of meeples, and they don't really do much. I don't think there's a justified reason of there being more than 2 different types of animals in the game, aside from that it looks prettier. A lot of the tiles that give you one animal can give you another one, and you just kind of take that other one. I do like the way that it looks, but I'm not grading this game based on looks. It's got to be what's under the hood. It kind of same thing runs with the other resources in the game. To me, all in all, this game just felt kind of loose, and it felt super long, lacked tension. Now, we were learning the game, and I've only played it once, but I'm just not that pumped about coming back to it. I need something like in my first game where I feel like the game is just kicking me in the face, like Andy likes, or just feel like there's some sort of tension that people like really sharked me on. And I just kind of felt like, no, we were all just really taking the path of least resistance, staying out of each other's way. As soon as somebody claimed a country board that you're later on going to take the meeples from, you just never went there. And it just kind of felt like not that interesting of a system. And it was all just about getting points. Our scores were all within like 5 points of each other. We were all like 99, 98, 95. And it just felt like, I was not excited after playing this game. And I didn't feel like playing it again. But that's my first impression. So I definitely want to give it a chance again, especially since I've paid a pretty penny for this game. But if only for the smells, it's worth it for that, I guess.
Yeah, it's like set it next to the bed on the nightstand open.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like Murr had a little bit of experience reading the chat, and and it looks like he liked his second game quite a bit more. So I appreciate you saying that, Murr. I'm actually now looking forward more to giving it another go. I was planning on playing it again, definitely. Just, this is first impressions here, guys. And part of the reason I'm giving first impressions is that TC couldn't make it tonight. By the way, good luck, TC. He's got quite a few changes happening with his job. If you're interested, check the episode description. I posted a link that he shared where he's actually, his lab is taking over other places. So he's kind of sitting in a conference call he wasn't exactly planning on tonight. He's sitting in a conference meeting. So, but I added this, even though I wasn't really going to review it. It's just a first impressions like Andy's talked about. So I am excited to hear that in more plays that it's going to get better, hopefully. So, and I didn't mention several of the mechanics here in the game. You do get lay down actions. So there is a kind of a push and pull to like when you run out of meeples that like now you can start laying things down. And so like a lot of times those lay down actions are super strong because you can lay down like 2 meeples at once. And so, but in our games, people always ended up with the same amount of meeples. And maybe that's what I was missing, or maybe that's what you're trying to point out, is that like you might just want to liquidate all of your meeples. So that way you can have very, very few meeples in a round, and then you just get to do all these laydown actions that are super, super powerful, and maybe it's a little bit more interesting. I still am going to need something. I just don't know if it's going to work for me, that most of the scoring in the game comes from just this, like 8 tiles are available, and then every time one goes, another one comes up. It just is not, considering all the combos that are possible there, like, come on, we're talking about Keyflower here. Keyflower has the auctions that made it so crunchy and cool, and that's totally gone. There's no auctions in Keyper. And I think that's what I'm really missing. And I'm not saying a game has to have auctions, but it just, how are you going to score points in the game? Well, you already have most of the things that can score you points. You have a ton of them you can score you points. And now you're going to just go get more by taking an action to go get stuff. I understand what you're saying, and I do think that those parts of the games are ones that we didn't play ideally for, and we just didn't know because it was our first game. But man, yeah, I guess I'm getting a little get up in arms just because I really do like the auctions in Keyflower, regardless of other flaws I have with the game, which I'm hoping Key to the City London, I might enjoy that more, that I still haven't played. But anyway, yeah, that's just I'm going to change my thinking going into the next game. But I still am probably going to miss my auctions, and I don't see that as being a hole in my heart that you can really fill. So that's my take on Keyflower, or Keyper, Keyper, for anybody who's trying to find it. Designed by Richard Breeze of the Key series fame. Also, hilariously, the backs of the player boards are like a mixture of a cool artwork for Keyper and like shameless advertisements for his other games. Right? In this case, I almost feel like I would have rather seen a good old splotter tabula rasa on the back of the player board than like an advertisement for Inhabit the Earth, which just has no thematic connection whatsoever to Keyper. Right?
Yeah. No, that's where the animals came from.
Y'all 500 animals. Well, they're really missing out there, man, because there's like 150 animals in that game, and in this one there's only 8 different types. But no, that's a good comparison.
In survival of the fittest, only 8 made it to the end.
I thought the animals were coming from that one government-sponsored ark in Kentucky, where all the employees have to be conservative Christian, and the animals literally crap on top of other animals. And that's how the manure is. There's tiered cages.
The best thing about that whole thing was the only ride was going to be the 12 plagues of Israel ride or something.
Yeah.
So you're going to ride little boats and see animatronic women hurling animatronic babies into the river to drown and crap.
Cool stuff. Very, very fun. Should make a board game about designing, about making an Ark theme park. The Ark Park.
Remember, T-Rex was on the Ark and ate coconuts.
He was on the Ark with the Ark Park Aardvark.
And I would like to say I'm joking about that, but they actually published a paper on his science site that stated that. So
this is wonderful, Andy. Well, thank you for enlightening us all with that. Now, Andy, what should we do after we reviewed these games? What are you up for, dude? Are you thinking something for the long haul, or because I could stay however late, but I'm just trying to make sure.
We're playing this game right now.
Oh. Okay. Well, Andy, I just want you to know that deep down, I was going to suggest my game, but I was just being nice, and now I'm stuck in your game.
Oh.
Dude, I'm stuck here now. And this is going to be the only one I play the rest of this night, since it's you.
Yeah.
You did this to me. This is like being held captive. It's like this game table is now a holding cell.
Yep, with poker chips.
Our topic tonight is what are we going to play next, or how to determine what we are going to play next. And we have some awesome comments to go off of in our BGG guild. What are you going to say, Andy?
Yeah. I said, or the torturous hell that is trying to figure out what you're going to play next.
I am right there with you, man. It is its own separate game. And I have a hypothesis here, dude. I was reading our comments, and I was considering what experiences we have, and I feel like I've been playing too much through the ages, and that's where this reference comes from. But I honestly think that it is like a government system. Like, it is your system of government, a governing body, and the type of structure that you use that provides, your gaming, that chooses what's coming next. Just like in Through the Ages, you start the game with despotism. There's an awful lot of progress you can make with despotism, but it sounds like there are some very complicated systems that require quite a bit of management and development. And, they also, in a lot of ways, I would think, require some extremely passionate participating individuals to continue them going. So we end up in our game group. Me and Andy are fortunate enough to play in the same game group here, that we end up in these situations where nobody wants to recommend a game, nobody wants to say what they'd like to play, and you end up in this situation where we're looking around at each other's game bags, like, well, how many do we have? And, who all's staying late, who all's going to stay for this amount of time. And then you're looking around and you're like, okay, well, I know that Andy likes economic games. And I know that that guy over there likes games where, stabby attack games. I know that guy over there likes anything that makes me squeal and complain, which also happens to be Andy who likes that. But anyway, Andy has.
No, I thought you were talking about Trent.
I think that's just everybody in the game group. So
Trent's pick is based on how much this game can be turned into the game Diplomacy.
Which the game, actually deciding the game itself, it's kind of strange that Trent is just so agreeable, because Trent's here in the comments, but he's actually at BGG Con right now. By the way, guys, this is going to be airing to you in the future. because right now we're recording it the week before Thanksgiving, but on Thanksgiving Day, this will actually, I think, release a week after Thanksgiving, but we're not recording next week. So, guys, next Thursday, hopefully you have something to keep you busy, something to do. I will be at my in-laws trying to get as much things going for gaming, because this is the first year that they've really asked me about it. Anyway, Trent's down at BGG-Con. He's participating in the comments, and I just like to say that if Trent's listening to this, which he may or may not be, he is extremely agreeable. Like, I don't think I've ever seen Trent turn a game down. I mean,
No.
I seriously don't think so. And that's just one of the best qualities to have. You know, somebody's willing to literally play anything, and, you know, usually save it until after the game to actually tell people, like, yeah, I'm not really looking forward to that. But I've even seen Trent, like, been up for playing, you know, a game that he knows he dislikes. And that's, you know, he's super agreeable, so there's not much diplomacy going on. But I agree with Andy that it definitely is a game of diplomacy. So, thing is, you know, what do you decide about what's going to get played next? And I found that some groups will have a rotating group of individuals that are almost like, you know, quote unquote founding members. Call it like, you know, your parliament maybe of their game group, that gets to, each of them gets to rotate, sort of being the game picker for that night. And if somebody's game gets done before the night's over, then they actually will go on to the person whose game pick it is next, because it's up to you sort of to pick a game that you think is going to take all night. So that was an interesting story that we heard, and that came from Ray, I believe. So I think, yeah, it's his turn. Yeah,
which we actually tried. See, I think one of the issues of figuring out how and what game you're going to play depends on the setting you're in. Mm-hmm. So, like, me and you go to a lot of open to the public events, and it's really hard to stipulate any structure to that, because you never know who the hell's going to come in and what they're going to want to do. Because if you remember, we did try the rotating thing, and it just kind of fell apart because people would get added. But then, since it's a public event and not really a private event, like, a lot of people didn't feel any obligation to be there when it was their turn to pick a game. So it became like, you know, well, do they go to the back of the list because they weren't there? Or are they up next because, you know, they missed this week? And it created a lot of confusion there, where if you had a core game group of, you know, 3 to 7, 8 individuals who always met and were pretty good about being there, you could really set up something with more structure to it. But I think if you're doing it at a public event, it's really, really hard to do that. Plus, it could be really off-putting, because if you have people coming in and they're like, oh, you know, hey, I'd love to play this game. And you're like, no, sorry, the select group of peoples are the ones that decide who's playing the games. And when you've already been determined,
would you like to be added to the rotation?
Right. And so, yeah,
and
you
then
know,
even
with
that,
jobs, you can do that.
Well, Andy, because we have a little bit of experience with a system kind of like this, and what we ran into was, because it took you quite a bit of work, and you did a good job. I mean, you were the one willing to put in the work to try to get. It's that, like, okay, well, we have 2 individuals each night that have, you know, where it's their game night. It's sort of their night to choose what games get played. And anyhow, that was a really cool system. And we ran in, though, to one specific issue, and that was that when players couldn't make it, you know, do they then, you know, get dumped to the bottom of the list? Like, every time that you're not there, should you, like, you know, your name get dumped? Because what ended up happening was we had players that were showing up, you know, conveniently on their game night, and then it would be like you wouldn't see them again until another game night was coming up, and then maybe they would like dump a statement saying like can't make it tonight or something like that. And, you know, I guess, so I don't think it was ever intentional, but I know that to those of us that were there, at least to me, who was there like every single night, every single game night, it felt very strange to be, you know, like to be playing other people's games constantly, and then every time I ever played a game with this one person, it was always with their game, is what it felt like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, okay, well.
It was that, and then there was a whole lot of, like, you know, who all do you include on a list? Because you'd have people that were, like, semi-regular, you know, they would maybe make two 2 weeks out of a month of gaming or something. And they'd be like, oh, can I get on the list? I'm like, yeah, but then that would throw off the rotations when they wouldn't come. And I think it's just really hard to have some kind of rigid system in a public setting like that and not have it being off-putting to people. Which makes
and I wouldn't even
really...
call that system rigid. That system is fair, man. That's what it is, because
Right.
otherwise it just turns into like, whoever can sell their games the best, and it really turns it into a game of snake oil, to keep making metaphors to other board games. It's like a game of snake oil as to who gets their game played or not.
Well, it is, and who's more forward about it, and that, for me, I was often more forward about the games I wanted to play, which is both a good and a bad thing, because after a while, I'm like the one who's getting to play all their games because everyone else is being kind of wishy-washy about it. I'm just like, we're playing this. Which is not so much, it was never really an effect of, I only want to play my games. It was more an effect of, because my time for gaming with other people is so limited, I might get 4 or 5 hours a week to do that. Like, I didn't want to waste an hour going, oh, I don't know, maybe this one wants to do that one.
That's what's going on in our chat right now. Like, yes,
Yeah.
Jerry and Mur absolutely agree with you guys that standing around figuring out what to play is just condemning to your game night. You're just like, what did I do tonight? Oh, yeah, that's right. We finished that game, and then they were getting finished up, so we just decided to sit around for half an hour, and we couldn't even really talk about what game we were going to play until they got done because we didn't know who all we had. And then when they finally got done, then one guy had to go grab a meal, so we waited for him to get back. And it's like you end up sitting around waiting for the entire night. And I'm totally with you, Andy, that like you just need to be able to play games, But that, at the same time, that requires sort of a private setting. That requires you to have a specific set of individuals. Otherwise, the only way to get to really ensure that you're just getting a game played is to show up to a public setting and pull what is now going to be known as a MRR, which is, hey, anybody want to play this game? As in, like, we're playing my game. Which, Mur, it sounds like you have despotism still as your government choice, which has been working for you for the last 1,093 days in a row of playing at least one game. That means the benevolent Mur knows well and knows best. It means I'm seriously behind you here, Mur, because who knows games better than you? I mean, you're listening to us right now. You're listening to a board game podcast. It's flowing through your veins, man. You're the one who is looking down the list of all these games, and you know who's in your game group. And when I'm buying games, I'm thinking about the people that are important to me and people in my game group. And I'm thinking about where do I fit in as a niche in my game group? What should I buy? And then you would know then when to play things. That's what I do with my kids at school, right? They don't know a game from another game. And so many people that come to these public nights don't know a game from another game. So if you put them in a position of power, they're just not going to know what to do with it. And they can try to play that same sort of game. Like, hey, I'm going to sit down with my, Japanese waifu Tanto Cuore game. And you're just going to be like, yeah, not going to play that one. Sorry, man. Not really my thing. Nope. As a matter of fact, I think you're a creeper.
Yeah. Well, and the other issue, too, can be like, I don't know, I hate to generalize, but it does seem like an awful lot of gamers can be more on the introvert than the extrovert side. So what can happen with me is I'm an extrovert. I like talking to people and running the show and teaching and all that kind of stuff. And so what could end up happening or was happening at our game nights was a lot of members of our group would like, oh, well, I brought this and those are okay. And so when you get someone like me, I'm interpreting that as, whatever. I don't really care if I play these or not. I'm being wishy-washy about it. Where when I do that, it'll just be like, I really want to play this game. Why don't we get that on the table? Which is not, once again, that I'm trying to be greedy about that, but
you don't want to stand around waiting for games to get played, Andy.
Well, that, and the thing is, I would be perfectly great with playing most games people bring to the game night, and it wouldn't bother me. But
you're not going to bring them up. You're kind of like, that's your responsibility, maybe? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, or when you do, to make a point of what you're actually enthusiastic about.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're wishy-washy, like, I don't know, I brought these, they're all right. Like to me, that's like you don't really give a crap what you play. That's how my brain interprets it. So if you don't care what you play, and I do, then why don't we just play the one I suggested? But like I said, that's not so much I only want to play my games. I don't want to play anybody else's. It's just like if you come off as not caring what you do, then I just, okay, well then let's do this.
Yeah. One of the big things that I've said to you here. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Andy. Keep going.
Well, yeah, and so I said, another thing is like if somebody came to the game night and was like, I'm really happy to get this game. I really want to get this one played. I would be like, okay, cool, let's do that. All right. And either I would try to be in that game or I would try to make sure it got played while I did something else, but I wouldn't try to pull people away from it.
Yeah, I would say one of the things I said to you, Andy, because I totally get the perspective you're coming from, but I also think that perspective is a very egocentric perspective because you're expecting the same behavior out of everybody else as out of yourself. And I'm not saying that you can't think outside of your own head, but as somebody who is in kind of inserting themselves into a place of leadership, which is what you're noticing there's a need for, absolutely a need for. And I think that Murr has noticed there's a need for that in his cases. But I think that when you ask people and communicate with people and ask people about their games, as I said to you, and as I've said when we've talked about this, Andy, you become like a hero for that person. Like, yes, you're the one who's who's actually moving the game night forward, but just because you're the one moving the game night forward doesn't mean it has to be in your direction only, right? Like if you want the game played, and I understand where you're coming from, I want games to get played too. I want games to get played too, and I feel like I fear more that situation that'll happen. Like, I guess I don't want other people to get stuck in a situation where their game gets over and they weren't sure what was going to happen. Here's what really sucks, man. What happens if I get to a game night, just a little bit timing off of being able to play with the people that I normally play with? I end up just kind of playing a game that I'm sitting there just killing time because I really want to get in with the other group that I normally play games with. And then what happens is I'm sitting there stuck in my game for whatever reason, and the other game gets done, and like 5 minutes later, my game gets done, but they've already, they've already jumped right in the next game. And now it's only really an issue when you're running such small numbers as we do here in sparsely populated cold Iowa. Yay.
Well, but to kind of piggyback off what you were saying there too, like for me, it would be fine to, like, I would advocate for others' games to play, but the problem is, like, and I'll be the first to admit, like, probably legitimately, I don't know. There's a good chance I'm a little bit on the sort of Asperger autism spectrum thing, and I have an awful lot of times, I have a hard time sussing out what people's desires can be. And so the issue is, like, I would be absolutely cool with advocating for somebody else's game to get played. But so often there is like no hint given as to do they even care or not. That's kind of the issue I see at times. So for example, a couple nights ago, I had 4X set up. Now, I actually came to that night not really caring if I played 4X or not. Like, I would enjoy playing 4X. I haven't played it that many times yet. But I was working off, like, I think you had said you wanted to try it somewhere, and Trent said he had wanted to try it a lot because he hadn't gotten a game, like he'd only done a quick learning game. So then I'm like, okay, I'm setting this up. And I think like there was some misinterpretation that I was pushing that, but in reality, I was pushing it because I thought other people wanted to play it. But so much of the time when we're like, in the moment saying, what do you want to play? Everyone just looks at their bag and they're just kind of like, I have these, I guess. Like, there's nothing for me to work off of, like, to know what they really wanted to do. And not that they got to say, we got to play this one. It's just, I haven't got a chance to play this one yet, and I'd like to try it. Great, let's do it. But if you look at your bag and you're just like, almost like, I brought these and because I don't know, like, it's a game night, so I thought I'd bring games. Like, you're giving off that vibe.
Yeah.
It's really hard, at least for someone like me, and I would assume others, to think that you care about anything you brought.
Yeah, you've got to ask. And I think that, you're talking about, some people are different levels of enthusiasm and different levels of energy in general, just type A versus type B. Obviously, you and I are pretty big time type A guys. Right. And I think that can confuse people at times. I also just think, though, that, like, for choosing a game, getting a game out and getting it on the table and getting it ready to play is fine. But I don't know, man, like, it works best if you don't have people that are, like, extremely conscious of the hobby, like, with this conscious of the hobby as we are as a game group. I mean, all three of us are informed enough and watching the community enough that, like, you're talking about three individuals with unique tastes all playing in the same group. And this is why I thought it would be really cool to have TC here to talk about it. But honestly, there's been some really great chat in that's really helped to make up for it. It's nice to hear from you guys. It's really helpful too. But I mean, like, with the three of us, one of us is not necessarily, in a position of power, or a position of where, they necessarily like, the rest of the group would kind of defer to that person, like, okay. Yeah, we're just not there. Like, I would say this, though, that I try to request games that other people have purchased because I think they like that game. I did this, Andy, with 4X.
Right.
Like my first game of 4X, and I've actually taken a lot of flack from several different sources now because I gave a first impression saying I need to play this again, and everybody's like, yeah, I disagree with everything you said. No, you didn't really go in depth enough. It was a first impression. And so my first impression, I've taken a lot of flack for, and I wasn't super interested in playing it again, but I also kind of acknowledged that we probably didn't play it optimally, and that was probably why it felt so just kind of weird. But the thing was, though, kind of the same way with Keyper, it makes me less excited to try it again. I think about it, man. How many games are there where the first game that you play it, like, I'm not talking about a game where my first experience was difficult. I'm talking about a game where my first experience was just not super interesting. Where it just felt like there wasn't anything that cool. It just felt like I was kind of going through the motions, moving pieces. Usually, if a game is difficult, kicks my tail, just makes it really hard for me to do anything, I don't know, like, that can be interesting. I'm not saying that. It's just, we have to make a lot of decisions even after just one play. But what I did, Andy, is I said to you over that next week, I was like, you know what, dude, I really want to play 4X again. And did I really want to deep down? Not really. Like, honestly, I did. No, I didn't. But I knew that you wanted to. I also knew from what Trent had said that he wanted to. And we got a whole bunch of listeners, and the listeners were clamoring. I don't want to say we got a whole bunch of listeners. No, absolutely not. Like, but you know what? The ones that we do,
the dozens that listen to us.
You guys are, you know what? You guys are members of this whole movement. You guys are members. You're part of it. I know you guys. I know your tastes. I know your favorite games. Maybe one day it'll be Cosmic Encounter. I know I try to keep up on what's going on with you guys. You know what? If we grew that much larger, maybe that would be more difficult for me. But the thing is, like, I'm really glad to have you guys here. The thing is, you guys wanted to see a game of 4X, and it was like, you know what? We'll do that. And actually, kind of have an idea for maybe doing someday a little fundraiser to try to pay for some of the costs of just upkeep of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, because that's not what our sponsorship covers. Sponsorship just covers a box of games every month that just keeps games showing up on our tables and stuff, and it keeps me from buying, which I have AD, really bad acquisition disorder. Anyway, we don't have anything that covers the cost of, like, the like the, just maintaining the website, or not maintaining the website, but just, Podbean costs $10 a month. And so anyway, I've been thinking about doing a fundraiser and then hopefully a charity drive. If we can get the fundraiser, just the initial cost of the site taken care of, we can then do a charity drive where all the money would get donated. But our thing would be playing a live playthrough of 4X, which I think would be really, really great. So to bring this back to 4X, what we were talking about, 4X, Andy, was, it was a game I wasn't super excited to play, but I asked for it because I knew that was something that was really interesting to you guys. And now, was that me trying to guess what your favorite thing was? Yeah, but it's also me telling you this, Andy, and that is, this may not be a game that I own or will seek out to purchase. Right. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't now, because I have had a much more positive experience with 4X. I would want to wait, though, until it gets picked up by a publisher that, where the games are just a little bit, less like the games you love. The reason that you love the game, yeah, those are things that keep me from buying it, Andy. I want you to know that.
Oh, I know.
The thing is,
I do really like. We've established that long ago.
And I'm pretty sure that I'm in the majority there. I don't want to say that like I speak for everybody. I want to make a Salin's Law here, especially not about that. I'm not about killing that sort of a system. I think it's really cool that you get into that little corner of the hobby, because we end up finding out about, the real gems. And I think that 4X could be one of those. But I was getting in your head there and trying to request a game that I thought you really liked, Andy. How do you feel about me doing that?
No, that's a good thing. The only problem that can come out of that, or for people, I don't know, like people like me, the issue like I have, and this is entirely a personal issue kind of thing. Like I tend to take people at very face value, whatever I'm seeing. And so if I don't see like excitement about something, it's hard for me to figure out what they're actually excited about. And then the other issue with that, quite frankly, is that I don't often have as much communications with, a lot of people in our game group as they have with each other, because like you and Nate and other people get together on Wednesday nights and have discussions as well. That's like a whole area of the group like I don't get any input in, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
But I mean, really what it comes down to, like less than a therapy session here, but
well, what it's doing is turning me into the Andy of Wednesdays, because the Andy on, so we got 2 game nights, right? That we generally can people, because all of our, we've tried different game nights at different times, but that's just currently what we're at. It's not that we can't have more, can't have, and or that we can even man those, but on the game night that we all play together, Andy's games are the only ones that get played. And so then I've got all these games, Andy. I'm pretty sure I buy more games than you do. And so I've just got crap tons of games. My games aren't necessarily short, but what's
the max? Like 2 hours? That's like a gateway.
2 to 3 hours. I'm sorry. But the thing is, Andy,
the
thing is, a lot of my games that I want to play on Wednesdays can push, because we get a lot more gateway gamers on Wednesdays. And anyway, it's like I turn into the, like I'm playing this game, like, or maybe we won't call it the Andy so much as the Mur, but Mur doesn't have anybody else that can say, like he doesn't have his game group here making, comments like, well, actually, Mur can get a little bit pushy with his games.
Well, but it also depends though, because a lot of groups,
no offense,
it's not uncommon though for groups that meet often privately, that it's one person who's really gone off the deep end and has the collection of a couple hundred games. And so other people are just like, why do I need to buy games? This person has all of them anyway. So but that's not uncommon in private groups. Like I said, I think a lot of the issues really is the public versus private setting. It's a lot harder because there's times where we try to plan a game ahead of time. Like, okay, tonight we're going to play this and this. But then
if it's a long game, you have to.
Yeah, but then the issue is, this is where me playing 18xx online has made me vastly less standoffish, because there were several game nights where, you know, it was like Trent, Nate, and I, and maybe one other was going to play an 18xx game. We show up to play an 18xx game, and that takes 4 of us out of the night, period. That's us doing that game, and to heck with anybody else and what they're wanting to do. And so the problem is if you have 1 to 2 new people walk in at a public event and you're playing 1860, and they just kind of sit there and look at you, and you're like, yeah, we're here for the night. You do what you want. Like, that's off-putting, and absolutely I recognize that. But I don't know what you do about those things, because that's where I said it's hard to plan. Like, we tried to plan a 2-player game night. All of us brought 2-player games, and we had just enough people show up to make the group counts not possible to do 2-player games.
No, we had 5 people.
Right.
5 people. What do you do? Like, it's a 2-player game and a 3-player game. But, like, you know, does your 3-player game sit there and play something short? And then it especially got ruined by the arrival of 1 extra person at the public game night. And then we were sitting there with 3 and 3. And what ended up happening was, oh, this is a tale of horror. I'm going to share a tale of this is the bad news. We'll do a good news story, because there is one I haven't gone over yet that was shared in our guild from Adam. But first, the bad news. And that was, you know, 3 players. So me and Trent are sitting there playing BattleCon. And then a guy shows up, you know, totally nice guy, just different place in the hobby as us. You know, he's got like Smash Up. And so me and Trent are sitting there playing BattleCon. We get done, and it's like, okay, well, you want to play something, don't you? Trent, did you bring anything? Nope. I didn't bring anything for 3. So we're playing your games. All right. And then we ended up playing them over and over, because he was playing his games, and getting to play your games is nice, especially since if you brought them, usually you're willing to play them. Especially if you bring them, you need to be willing to teach them. I think we've established that in our comments, but yeah, you need to be willing to teach them.
That's a whole nother topic, really.
Oh yeah, it's totally different topic. If you're that, you know, like, no, there's certain board gaming etiquette, definitely something that escapes people new to the hobby for sure. But, you know, like, just be a gentle teacher, I guess, if you can, you know, in terms of teaching people, young one, you need to make sure you can play your games, and know how to play them. You know, we're not here with you, you know, we're like, you need to pay me if you want me to teach your games, unless you got a good relationship with them. It sounds like Mur is willing to do that for people. That's really cool. So anyway, though, we ended up just playing Smash Up all night. It was one of the worst game nights I can remember. It was just miserable. We played Smash Up. We got done with that, played this crappy Star Wars game. We played other
Star Trek 5-year
Star Trek. That's what it was. It was just awful, absolutely terrible. It's one of the most embarrassingly bad games. 5-year mission. And it was
I
just
heard
like,
you guys were playing that, and I looked over and I was like, I have not heard good things about that one.
It was so bad. It was just so bad.
Basically, what that person was is they were at the table, Will Wheaton's tabletop level of their gaming world.
Yeah, which is totally cool. I'm so happy
absolutely.
that guy is enjoying games, right? But I can't, I don't enjoy that style of game at all. I'm not making decisions. You know, Trent had a special ability whose, you know, it was the one where you have to say, "Shut up, Wesley," for him to use it. You have to say, "Shut up, Wesley," every single one of his turns. Like, how quickly does that turn into something you say in Grown if you don't already?
Yeah.
Anyway,
But I mean, that's the thing, is when you got a public event, it's really hard to do forward planning. So that almost virtually guarantees that you're going to be sitting there doing the what do we play game, unless someone just pushes something, which can be difficult as well for what we discussed, because like we said, some people are naturally more forceful than others, which is weird that I'm one of those people, because that was not me growing up at all. But yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. It just makes it difficult. And I think, I mean, in some ways it stems, I think, from the best of intentions. It's not like everyone's being all wishy-washy. It's that I think most of us, at least in the core group, are just afraid of getting people into a game that they're going to hate.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, what about this one? And then someone will be like, yeah, it's okay. And then we go, oh God, they don't really want to play that one. How about this one? Yeah, it's okay. Like, I don't know. It's just the problem is it just needs to be improved communication in general. But when you got people who are introverts, I'm not sure that's ever going to happen.
It can be very struggling. I mean, it definitely. I think that, you know, if you got the structure where you can have one individual that just kind of understands everybody and everybody can maybe have input, but that one individual decides, like in Mer's case, that can so totally work. I could see that working. But honestly, Andy, I don't think that necessarily that would work with the two of us in that same group. I mean, like, I think there has to be some sort of a rotation. You know, like, we enjoy each other's company, but we enjoy such a different style of game that, like, it just, you know, it needs to be some sort of system that's fair, right? It needs to be something where it's like, okay, well, I've played your games for a certain amount of time, and that way it doesn't turn into, well, when it's my turn, when, you know, when I notice that the entire room isn't playing anything, it's like, you know, my initial reaction is not so much to push for my own game to get played, but it's, you know, if I know the people that I'm with and I know that they like their games, like I know, Andy, that you bring games knowing that you want to play this, you only get one game night a week. So I normally will be like, oh, right, well, what, Andy, did you bring? You know, like, I've played a lot of games that way. And I do the same thing, try to do that with other people. And there's, you know, the people that I know are more forceful about it, I generally tend to defer, you know, to what they're saying. But then what happens to me is I kind of bottle up this feeling of, like, you know, I'll get to the point where I look at my game bag and it's like, I haven't changed out a game in like 3 weeks because none of these have got played. I don't even remember the rules to these games anymore. I need to read the rule book again. And when it gets to the point where I've read a rule book for the 4th time without playing a game, I start to get really pissed. But it's like, you know, this, like, when I get upset, I'm not just gonna be like, you know, I don't want to be passive aggressive with people. So I'm like, I'll mention it to your face, like, I don't think my games are getting played. And so, you know, the game that you play is just so, you need like a system. But then there are all these kinks that can be thrown into the system. Unless you can make it a system that's just like the one person is in control of it and can work out the kinks. But if it's everybody that's doing it, it just feels like, you know, every time anything happens, it's almost like we need bylaws to this game group. We need Parley Pro to figure out what game we're playing next. You know, like, I move that we're going to play this game. I move that the style of game we play it this week be this. You know, well, like,
wasn't it? Oh, okay. Chaz Marler on the Paradise stuff he did. Like, I swear he was talking about something like that, and that, like, his game group, because I guess they got a fairly large one, like, once a month or 2 months or something, they, like, literally sit down for X amount of time of a game night to, like, they like legitimately have rules and some bylaws and stuff. So they, like, sit down to discuss those and make sure everything's done. And I get what you're saying, because part of the problem is if you're the one who's always bringing games and they're not getting played, that's really easy to build up resentment to, which can lead to bad feelings and everything. When, like I said, I don't think anyone's doing anything at the game night ultimately because they're selfish or that. I think they're ultimately just trying to play games, get people going, and have a good time. But you can cause hurt feelings and resentment unintentionally just by doing, you know, things like I was just like, okay, let's play this one. When in reality, I'm just like, I don't want us to sit around here hating the game night because we're sitting here doing nothing.
And when we had our discussion, Andy, because you and I, if we have something, we could talk with each other, which is really, really nice. Because everybody has a tendency to get on each other's nerves. And I would say the biggest issue I have just in general with gamers who tend to be introverts, and introverts tend to be passive-aggressive. And screw passive-aggressive. Screw it. It's awful.
My wife's family is like that. So whenever she does it, I just like, my wife has been trained through habit to do it, but she hates it. So she'll do things like, you know, I really like ice cream. And I'll just turn around and look at her and go, does this mean you want me to go to the store and get you ice cream, or are you just saying a statement into thin air for no good reason?
A statement into thin air for no good reason.
Because she'll do that sometimes too. And
oh my goodness.
And then she'll go, okay, I want you to go to the store. I'm like, thank you. And then I go to the store.
Yeah, it needs to be much more direct communication, because otherwise it just can get lost. Because, well, at the same time, though,
passive aggressive is lost on me. Like if you
she
try that
doesn't want
approach,
you. She doesn't want you. She's like, she's giving you the opportunity to be the hero, you know. But like for me, if I'm like, I like ice cream, that just means I like ice cream. Because if I want ice cream, I'll go get ice cream, right?
Right.
If I want it to eat ice cream, I'll eat ice cream, you know. The only issue comes into effect when, you know, we both want ice cream and we both have a place that we want to go, and where do we go? And that's kind of the situation I would say more with the board game night. You know, Andy, I do not come to board game night to sit around, right?
Oh,
I do not come to board game.
Yeah.
But I do come to board game night socially. I don't just come to play games. I do enjoy talking with people. And so a lot of times I'll try to make the best out of a situation just by talking. And a lot of times that contributes more to the problem than it does, you know, the problem of picking a game than it does to the actual solution. And, you know, I'll be the first one to throw myself under the bus for that. That's why we podcast, dude. That's why we do this. Because, you know, otherwise
we were standing in front of me
until 10 in the morning. This, yeah. Thank you so much for being a part of this too, gentlemen. But when it comes down to it, you know, like, it's really nice to have an outlet where we can talk. But at the same time, like, that means let's be purposeful with our gaming. And now I think that hopefully with a little bit of a toolbox in terms of, like, if you're the guy who's playing games, I would suggest, you know, that you know, if somebody gives you a request, it's really important to them. You know, it depends obviously on what level they're at, because if they're somebody who's passionate, who's actually going and looking up games, who you know, is kind of like a budding hobbyist and not just somebody who enjoys the event, then, you know, it could be really important to them. You don't want to step on their toes. At the same time, though, you know, like, you don't want to be like, oh, here, I see you brought that game. And then the person's like, okay, sure, let's play it. And then after the game gets done, both of you look at each other and you're like, all right, we'll never play games again. And it turns out that after all, they hated the game. They were only bringing it just in case somebody really wanted to play that. And you're being presumptuous. So being presumptuous is almost just kind of like bad in general, I would say. You know, when you presume that somebody wants to play something, that's difficult. But at the same time, like, if you're not just, like, not everybody just advocates for themselves. And sometimes they need you to advocate for them, or they need you to, like, awaken that voice within them. And I would say that if you really want a game played, maybe you ask them, like, hey, we just played my game. What game do you want to play? You know, and that to me would be like, let's move this game night forward. So that definitely, I think, is a way to go with it. And I'm going to want to share now the story that I promised earlier, which is from Adam. So Adam has been joined us in the chat before, and you know, hope to see him more. But it is good to hear from him. And here's what he said. So this, I'm just going to start reading it here, so you know that it's coming from Adam. Had a funny experience recently where the group I was with was thinking about playing Arkwright, but one of the guys wasn't certain about playing something so heavy. We all then spent a bunch of time going through the possible options. I suggested we do a hate draft to determine what we'll play. The new guy would pick 6 games, and we'd hate draft out the games we didn't want to play. He picked out Haspel Connect, Xia, Dungeon Lords, Arkwright, and it sounds like the other 2 games he doesn't remember. It ended up where Xia and Arkwright were the only 2 left. And at that point, the host flipped a coin, and after all of that, we ended up playing Arkwright anyway. So Andy loves the story because it ends up with people playing Arkwright, and it's about Arkwright.
That's how you know that there are gods of gaming that prefer game.
So that was a really funny story. I think that, you know, just kind of like that same meme where it's like, this is what I think I do, and it's like a big strategist. This is what I actually do. Me sitting reading a rule book alone. You know, this is what I look like. This is the way things actually go. This is like, you know, it just sounded to me like meme-worthy almost. What game are we going to play? I feel like there needs to be a meme for sitting around waiting for a game, and I'm not the creative mind. Maybe Board Game Nate, who, you know, Nate from our group, the Elusive Nate, would like to contribute with a meme sometime, because I know he's pretty up on those.
No,
so
what we need to do is negative reinforcement. So be like, we have 2 minutes to determine a set of games to play. If we do not figure this out in 2 minutes, everyone has to play Munchkin.
That is the nuclear option, man. Why is the build that into your system? Like, Seriously, that is like the debt ceiling right there, man. You know that when the time comes, it's just going to get moved back. What is the point?
Yeah, no, I set out a box of Cards Against Humanity and be like, you got 3 minutes to get into groups or this is what the hell you're playing.
Andy, the sad thing is that only works on you, me, and a few other people. Other folks would be like, ooh, we get to play Cards Against Humanity?
Well, then see, I throw it out the door. They run after it. I lock it. Just like I do with my students. I'm like, you can pick your partners for this project. You have 2 minutes, and if I have to pick one group, I pick them all. Go.
I always do the picking, man. Otherwise, the smart kids self-select. But we're not talking about school here, Andy. We're not going to go classroom management. Come on, dude. Come on.
It's good times.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in board game groups. It's all managing people.
It really is. It's similar. I feel like, standing up and talking to a group full of people, for 5 hours a day.
Oh, no, I got an idea now. I'll start clicker training our gaming group. Like if I put a game on the table and someone says like, that's the one I want to play, I'll like give them a Hershey kiss and like click something.
Except Andy, I would love to just give an actual dog treat shaped like a Hershey kiss every time somebody's playing your games now.
Good
or just mix them into your bag and then not actually take any. Yeah, so I think that what's happening to us is that we're starting to struggle because, we do need some sort of a system, but a public game night makes that very difficult. And I think that, there are a few changes that we're still trying to work out, but we have been debating turning into a private game night, turning into a game night that's only people coming over. So
which is a valid option. A lot of game groups do that. They start in a public space and move to a private space. And there's good and bad to go with that. It's not like one is preferable to the other. It's all about trade-offs. What do you gain? What do you lose? Same with any system you would come up with deciding, who plays what games. What do you gain? What do you lose? If you have one person who's picking them, great. Then we always know what we're playing, whatever they want. The trade-off of that is if you have somebody else who's also buying a lot of games, they can become resentful to that. So I think it's just the find out what works with your group and just keep trying crap and still something sticks.
Absolutely, yeah. A system is easier to implement when it's one individual, and I think that's why Murr has had so much success just running his game night, and I think that's why the continued success. That's why Murr is now into. It's been 2014 since that guy's gone a day without gaming. Man, I'm jealous of you.
No, not having kids. Yeah, that's the clutch there. That's how you can get that done.
Yeah, well, I would love to
I've had minor success. Candyland has not come off the game shelf in over 3 years now.
Yeah. Well, Andy, but it wouldn't hurt you to try that escape room game that you got. I really do think that you would like that one, man.
I probably would. It's up in the closet.
It's not that bad. It might not be right up your alley, but it definitely is something that I think that it might help the individuals in your family that are not as into gaming, at least not as into what you're into gaming, see that there's more dimensions to it. But then at the same time, you might be trying to limit them from that because you don't want them to start being like, oh, this counts as your game night. You getting to play Lords of Waterdeep with us. Yeah, Andy, that's where that went.
No, I told my daughter if she wants me to go on a shopping spree with her or something like an all-day shop fest, then she owes me an 18xx game. I have not had to go on any shop fests.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, yeah, just sit down and say something like, just start trying to use that sort of like passive aggressive. So, so I really have been looking at 1860 and it looks like it's going to be really fun.
Yeah. You need to do it. There was the one geek dad. He really wanted his kids to get into Dungeons and Dragons, but if he knew if he tried to force it on them that they would hate it. So he just started like strategically leaving the books laying out around the house. Like, oh, I read this and just kind of set it down. And then the kids would start leafing through it and look at all the pretty pictures and be like, Dad, this is really cool. Can we play this? And he was just like, yeah, sure. No, if you want to, that's fine. And inside he's like, yes.
Yeah, I can totally get that.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think that this has been a really good discussion just to get a lot of different people's input on it, like what type of things you end up doing. And I think like Jerry even mentioned, like I love games with solo versions because I try a game in my game group and it just, if it doesn't go over well the first time, it's just no chance of getting it played. So at least I have some sort of consolation with the game, which makes sense. I mean, and that's kind of, it's kind of sad that's,
and to all you people out there who resonate with that, that's how I get my Phil Eklund games played.
I like Pax Ren, man. I played that game so much.
Well, other than Pax Ren and Pax, no, I should. That's
which is funny because you stopped really pushing Pax Ren. You stopped, but I guess you stopped pushing Phil Eklund altogether.
Yeah, but no, I was referring more. Okay, the Phil Eklund science games. That's how they get played is solo. All right.
Yeah. Well, how about time for hype now, Andy? Why don't you kick us off with a Euro game that Trent has sold you from his table at BGGCon?
Yep. So hype. A couple quick games here. One is it just released, I think now. Noria. It's in the Essen crop this year. I don't know too much about it. And honestly. Me being the lovely judgmental gamer I am on some games, like I looked at the cover and thought, it looks like Ameritrash, moved on. Because it has this weird fantasy kind of airshipy thing there. But anyway, what makes this interesting is that, or what is interesting me is Trent, he's down at BGGCon and basically played a game of this, and he said, okay, it looks like a Euro, and kind of plays like a Euro, but oh my God, there's some like economic viciousness to do in this game. And that immediately was like, wait, what? You have my attention, sir. The other thing that's really weird about this game or interesting is it's got like a 3-tiered rondel. And it's something like when you move them, all of the wheels move once, and the way your player pieces line up on these rondels that are being timed is what actions you can do. So it kind of gave me a vibe like Zolkin, except imagine there being like a smaller wheel within a wheel with a smaller wheel in there, and you have to like time when all of them will meet in the most optimum place for you. Which sounds just like my brain's going to die. Now, the other reason that I actually, when I looked up this a little bit more, that I'm interested is Edward and Heavy Cardboard interviewed the designer of this game at Essen, and it just got released a day or two ago. And it was a female designer. And one of the things, I've wanted to see is more women game designers, podcasters, and everything. But a lot of the games that have been designed by women I've seen, now granted, I haven't gone out hunting. I just look at games and, who designed them. But a lot of them are on the lighter side. They're kind of the nicer, fluffier games. Like this one, right now on BGG has a complexity rating of 3.86. Like it's getting right up into my wheelhouse there.
Yeah.
So, and the fact, okay, like I can support a new female designer who's making nice, heavy, chunky, thinky games. That seems really cool to me. So, I went from I need to not buy too many games this next year to going, Carmen, if you get copies of this one in, I call one dibs.
Maybe Holland should be able to do a reprint though, because then you'll have to get it.
Yeah, it'll be paper maps and like a paper rondel.
You'll have to. It'll be Spielwork style, so you'll have to actually glue pieces together to make that tiered thing work.
I'm gonna have to do that in the next Sierra Madre game that's coming in for me too. So, another.
Andy was serious when he said that. Total honesty. That was beautiful.
Yeah, well, you know.
I love you, Andy.
Another one I actually found, I heard about, and I like immediately went and ordered it off the Board Game Geek marketplace. So I'm hoping that it comes in, but I haven't got all the lovely emails to let me know that I definitely have this coming and all that yet. But it's called, let me go find it there, Turin Market. And I've heard a few podcasters at BGG talk about this game, and then I immediately went and bought it because what it kind of makes me think about is like the love letter of auction games. So it's like a micro game, like it comes in like legitimately like a box that's about the size of a deck of playing cards, and it's just got some cards and wooden tokens in it. And apparently it's like there are 18 playing cards in the game, and it's an auction game. And apparently from what I've heard is a lot of people at BGG are like, oh yeah, cute little filler, we need a filler, let's play this. Holy God, these auctions are evil. Because the way it works is, let's say there's 5 players, right? You put cards out for bid. And what's going to happen is whoever bids the most is going to get like 2 of those cards. And then the second most will get to basically the way the auctions always work. There's going to be like 1 to 3 people that get cards that are going to score them end game money. And then there's going to be 1 to 2 people that get nothing. And what happens is if you get a card, you have to pay your whole bid. So if you bid 6, you pay 6. But if you don't get a card, like let's say you try to lowball it and you end up being too low to get a card, you have to pay half of that bid still. So if you bid 6 and that's the lowest bid, congratulations, you spent $3 and got nothing. And it's hidden bids. So it's the lovely, like, how much am I willing to risk? Put it in my fist, put it into the middle of the table, open it. Oh my God, I should have done more. And it plays in like 10 to 30 minutes, so it's right in that filler category.
Oh, nice. You said it's called Turin Market.
Turin Market. And literally, they did a Kickstarter a year ago, and like these copies are like handmade by the guy who's doing it.
Whoa.
And so, yeah, they're like laser cut wooden tokens, like, like a Meeple Realty insert or something for the money. Like, but it was like $20 on the BGG marketplace with $3 shipping. So like basically after I heard like Punching Cardboard and Heavy Cardboard and a couple others talk about how like this was like one of the neatest little mini auction fillers they had seen in a long time, I'm like sitting in the McDonald's parking lot this morning waiting for coffee, checking BGG Marketplace and buying it right there. Which is good because apparently there's no more copies on the BGG Marketplace tonight. So yeah. Anyway, I'm kind of excited for it just because like an auction game filler that plays quickly and has a quick
10
setup
to 30
time.
minutes, dude. I mean, seriously, Andy, like, let's be honest here. You want to be able to sentence somebody to a longer game than 10 to 30 minutes. I mean, honestly. And that's why when Andy gets other people to play a game, it's not getting them to play the game, it's sentencing them. This is we've got a sentencing hearing. Andy has deemed you worthy of, or no, has deemed you needing to commit 4 hours of community service. It will be spent playing an extremely long, painful game of
trains. Some kind of trains.
No,
zombies on trains. Oh wait, I can do that. Age of Steam has a zombie map.
Oh, of course, man. We need to keep playing Age of Steam, by the way.
No, that's a standard. Needs to come in my bag all the time because
always, yeah. I just would always play it, and if we were playing Age of Steam, yeah, I'd be very happy. So I still want to play my games, though. I still want to play my games. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, just bring an Age of Steam map that's yours.
So, thank you, Andy, for telling us about both of those. Those are both really interesting titles that you mentioned, man, and I'm interested in both of them. Very interested in both of them, dude. That's
no, they sound really interesting. Like, I had pretty much written off like any more games this year as like things I didn't really care about, and then I've heard about these two, and I'm like, son of a bitch, my budget's dead.
Yeah. So,
anyway,
my hype is just going to be for the Crete and Egypt maps of Concordia, a double-sided map, and it's just, Concordia is such an amazing game system whose board is, bordering on this sort of Euroized Age of Steam that is really about setting yourself up to try to get the most resources while giving the least to your opponents. It's a really cool system. Love it. These ones add a different form of payment that accentuates and kind of like it makes cloth a little bit less important in terms of being able to acquire cards because the card drafting row no longer requires cloth, and that's kind of just the little wrinkle that they added. Aside from that, just you've got your Crete and Egypt maps. But I would love to just keep playing Concordia. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Did a long view episode about it that you should totally check out. And I recently got feedback on it that said that I did not go in depth enough into these into all the different maps that are available. So I want everybody to know, since everybody who listens to that's clearly going to be listening at this point in the episode, that I love all the expansion maps for Concordia so much that I even confused the name of the game with Age of Steam. But the thing is, like, I'm loving the way that Concordia
that were doing that, or was that Clay that was doing that, or was it both of you? I can't remember.
I just messed up with Concordia. I think I'm sure if it was something bad, I'm sure it was me that did it. I will take all of the hate and I will just absorb it like a sponge.
No. Every game was like Catan for you. That was what Jeff.
Yes, that's it. Like, well, I use that as a frame of reference because I think, like, yeah. And here I am defending myself, Andy. Yes, thank you.
Derailing conversations is my thing.
No, you made a good point there. So yeah, I compared Concordia Catan and it pissed people off, and I was like, no, let me tell you how it's better than Catan. Why does it take Catan and fix it? Like that's the same reason I would say it. Anyway, Concordia, I really, really like it. The different dimensions that the maps push it in are really cool, and I'm excited now for Egypt and Crete. And we're going to cut this one off right now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. It's been really great, honestly, Andy, just getting to be the two of us. I feel like, it's not very often that we do have a two-man go of it. But
I think the last time we did one was like 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, you and I haven't been on together. And this was it was nice to get to hear so much from you and to, like your perspective, my perspective. We do. We have very different perspectives, but I think the fact that you're so open to listening and not just, neither of us is passive aggressive. And I think that kind of breeds for an interesting discussion. And gentlemen that have been here in the chat, I'm pretty sure, Murray, you have made everybody that's following along to what we're saying here want to move to your neighborhood in Jacksonville, Florida, considering that you have such a long go of it of playing games. Anyway, it's just really great hearing from all of you guys, from Jerry, from Murr, and from Norm, and anybody else that I missed. I'm pretty sure that's who's been the main guys that we've heard from. And anyway, wish you guys a good night. Thank you all to those of you listening out there. Thanks for choosing The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. I'm your host, Joe Sallin. I've been joined tonight by
Andrew Dennison.
And we will catch you next week. Have a great week of gaming. We'll catch you next week on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Technically, it won't be next week because we're recording this and it'll be releasing like on an off week. But, hopefully you guys enjoyed this extra little bonus episode when we'll be away with vacations. And I had a great time doing it with you, Andy. So,
oh, me too. I don't know about you, but on Thanksgiving, I'm just going to sit in front of my computer and talk like I'm still doing a podcast.
I actually already do that. So I do that. Yeah, and my wife has threatened to record it and share it with the whole world if we're ever in a dispute. So anyway,
this is my way of avoiding the in-laws. You're like, well,
I'm going to be trying to evangelize But yeah, I got to get to the drawing board about what exactly I'm going to put in my game bag for that. So good night, everybody.
Good night.